Well, I guess that this video is gonna be a little unusual. The thing is that there are a couple of topics I couldn't include in my previous videos, and learning from my past experience, I guess I might try discussing these things now, in a separate little video, instead of, possibly, waiting for months for a chance to discuss them in a longer video. However, this stuff itself might not really be super mind-blowing, but just some things that I liked and would like to talk about. So, the first subject is from the painted world of Ariandel. Namely, it's about something located in the basement below the Ariandel chapel. The thing is that behind the illusionary wall, in the room where we find crystal lizards, and a door leading to the roots that go down to the ancient tower, we may find something quite peculiar. On one of the walls in this room there are placed some books, cups, bowls and jars. Similar to those from upstairs that lie on the tables in the chapel, or those scattered all over the basement that are covered in blood. Only unlike the broken tableware, these particular jars and books on the wall aren't just lying around randomly in random quantity, but are rather put there more or less orally and are present in distinct quantity of each item, thus being rather a particular set of objects necessary for a person, rather than a random pile. And this set of books and tableware is actually unique for this room. None of the other walls has anything on itself. The rest of the tableware that may be found in the room is lying scattered across the floor. So I believe that it indicates that someone had actually been staying in that room, hiding behind an illusionary wall, for a rather long period of time. And really, I simply love From Software for such tiny but still enormously interesting details that actually tell us parts of the story in a really subtle way. And as for the person who had been hiding there, I guess that of course most likely it could be Vilhelm, as we find his corpse, well, at least corpse with his gear, that is, pretty much right outside the hidden door leading out of that hideout room. So it looks like that room is exactly the place from which Vilhelm casts his illusion. Well, if that game mechanics thing preventing from killing the character too early is really explained by being an illusion cast, and it seems it's exactly that room that he invades us at the library from.
I've seen your kind, time and time again. Every fleeing man must be caught. Every secret must be unearthed. Such is the conceit of the self-proclaimed seeker of truth.
And returning to the story of Knight Vilhelm and his lady Elfriede we discussed in one of my previous videos, where I suggested that it would actually be way more touching if Vilhelm served Elfriede secretly, still faithfully serving her even being no longer bound by his knight's duty, without her even being aware of what he does for her, expecting no reward for his devotion. And if he actually hides in the basement below the chapel, it would really make it more likely that Elfriede doesn't really know about Vilhelm's actions, and he acts secretly on his own. And that would pretty much disclose the touching humane side of Hangman, Vilhelm of Lundor, whose cruelty in serving the Sable Church could in fact be caused by his blind devotion and love for the eldest of its sister's founders. However, given the location of the hidden room, it also may be speculated that person hiding could be the livid pyromancer Dunnel, though I guess that would be way less likely, as actually, he invades us in the ancient tower which is located in the depths of the painting, below the hidden room. Also, it may be assumed that it's Fried herself who had been hiding there, but that also would be somewhat weird, and the hidden room is actually quite far away from the Ariandel's boss room. So if it's really only her illusion sitting beside the entrance, she would have to really rush from the basement to enter the room in order to snuff out certain ashes for good. And, of course, another possible inhabitant of the hidden room could be Slave Knight Uncle Gale, though we see his summon sign near the bonfire, so maybe in his world he's rather sitting beside the bonfire. But let's now proceed to the second subject. I'd say it's a rather obvious thing, about that group of smaller sick Corvian people walking across the settlement in a procession of sorts, but as I had to skip this point in my video about the two ashes of Ariandel in order to keep it shorter, I'd still like to talk about it now. However, I guess I should start this discussion by talking about the altar we find in the Church of Corvian settlement. quite obviously, it appears to be rather similar to those altars of the Cathedral of the Deep, only it has no deacon statues. And, I'd say it's not too likely that the devs are simply too lazy to use a different altar model, though such possibility can't be just ruled out completely, but rather the similarity hints to a lore-wise connection, as the altar is particularly quite similar to the altar of the cleansing chapel of the Cathedral of the Deep, where Gale prays for a fire for Ariandel and Dash to kindle flame, to a deity he calls Mother of the Forlorn. So, I guess it's kinda the same religion. However, Corvian altar is somewhat less likely to be related to the Deep, but given that it's located in the painted world of the Forlorn and Gale's prayers at a somewhat similar altar, I'd say it's quite likely that it's related to Mother of the Forlorn. And the reason I mention it is that the Corvian procession is actually heading for the upper ward of the settlement, when it gets attacked by a Corvian knight. And, actually there are two buildings they could have been heading to. A church with an altar that we discussed, and a Corvian library, where Vilhelm hired the painter, who is meant to paint a new world. And as it is said that Corvian knights, infatuated with Sister Elfried, took to the execution of their own brethren. Quite possibly because, unlike Elfried, the sick Corvians choose to burn the painted world to give away for a new painting, instead of keeping on rotting alive. So they could have been heading to either of the two buildings really, to the library to possibly free the painter, or to the church to simply pray for the fire to cleanse their painting of rot. However, though it's a speculation, given that the sick Corvians show no ability, nor determination to fight back when attacked by a knight, I guess it's less likely that they actually went there to free the painter. And it's pretty much not that clear whether could they even know that the painter was held in a library. Another point is that the Corvian procession is attacked by a Corvian knight, while the library is only guarded by Vilhelm and there are no Corvian knights there. However, there are actually two Corvian knights in the church. So I guess that for them, it's actually the church that is important. And they guard it from the rest, sicker, weaker, smaller Corvians who would like to bring their world and agony to an end. And, also, in the church we find the Way of White Corona miracle. But I'd say that it's possible that it's not even like that the Corvian procession was going for that miracle, but they're rather attacked only because they would pray for the Ariandel's painting's end, which is probably a crime in the eyes of the Cronites influenced by Elfried. But of course, all of this is pretty much only a speculation that doesn't really rule out the rest of the possibilities. However, let's now proceed to the third subject. And this subject is actually the peculiar symbol we may find in Ariandel of the Boreal Valley. This symbol depicts a flower inside of sun, surrounded by some patterns. And we actually may find the same symbol in Gwynevere's chamber in the old Cathedral of Anorlundo, and even in two instances, as a damaged stone bas-relief, and as a golden symbol. What's so peculiar about it is that it's not the first time we may encounter this symbol, for, in distant past of Dark Souls 1 Prepare to Die edition, in the ancient ruined township of Oolacile, we could actually find a really similar symbol on the walls of Oolacile Colosseum Tower. Well, of course it might have not precisely the same texture with the stone variation of this symbol in Dark Souls 3, as it's smaller there, meant for objects of lesser scale and detail. But in general it really seems to be the same symbol of flower inside the sun, which I believe means that this symbol is actually at least one of the symbols of old Anorlundo's staked in Lordran, as the city of Ariandel is obviously related to Anorlundo, while, given the location of Oolacile, which appears to be right below Anorlundo's mountain, and the fact that the capital of Anorlundo sent one of the Gwyn's 4 knights there to fight against the Abyss, though, I guess it's a weaker point as they could send him anywhere where the Abyss would outbreak, though it would make sense for Anorlundo to send its knight to deal with the problems of their subjects. It seems that Oolacile is actually also related to Anorlundo, being a part of the same state, the same culture, civilization. Well, at least we can see a similar symbol both in Ariandel and Oolacile, although at the first look, these locations appear to be so different. And, as we actually find this symbol in Gwynevere's chamber. and also in Ariandel beside the statues that, as we discussed in one of my older videos, could actually be statues of older Gwynevere, or someone related to her. And also taking that the symbol kinda gives somewhat feminine feeling about it, though it's only my impression. I guess we may assume that the symbol is actually a symbol of Gwynevere herself. And if that's really the case about this symbol, it would provide a connection between Gwynevere and Oolacile, although in Dark Souls 1, something that roughly looks like this symbol, though it's hard to tell precisely due to the texture quality, is present in Gwynevere's chamber only in its stone version, while the golden symbols seem to be different. In addition to that, while there is such symbol on this railing in Dark Souls 3, in Dark Souls 1 it's absent there. And, of course, we should not forget the possibility that it could actually be just a content simply reused in different Souls games, possibly as a tradition. For instance, the stained glass pattern we see, among other places in the Lothric Palace, or, in the Painted World, in the Ariandel chapel behind the statue of a woman with a little girl, likely statue of Mother of the Forlorn. This pattern actually can be also seen back in Demon's Souls game. And, while it might provide a lore-wise relation between the different parts of Dark Souls 3, the direct relation between Demon's Souls and Dark Souls is kinda unlikely, since Day is a Sony's stuff. But, that's a separate topic anyway. As for this video, I guess that would be it now. It's possibly already a little longer than a short video, but I hope that it was interesting for you, although it covers some really small details. However, to me, such stuff is one of the things I love the Souls games for, and I also hope that possibly you'll like to check out other of my lore, etymology or cosplay videos if you haven't seen them. There's some interesting stuff there, and sometimes it even feels bad that I can't really experience the excitement of finding them for the first time once again. Also, you can check out the video description for a link to the etymology videos table of contents, if you're interested in this topic, as it's meant to make it easy to find the discussion of the necessary names.